Hey there, guys. How's it going? So, with all that's supposedly going on in boxing in 2019, all the developments, all the upcoming fights, all the excitement, sadly, the news that seems to have gotten everybody's attention and what seems to be the hottest topic right now in the entire sport of boxing, and the thing that everybody wants to talk about and discuss is this alleged failed drug test of Dillian Whyte before his fight against Oscar Rivas. Now, when I first heard about this story, I just thought to myself, I was like, here we go again, another fucking failed drug test. I wasn't even gonna make a video, I wasn't even gonna talk about it. A lot of people, there are channels out there, man, that have made dozens of videos on this topic alone. I mean, like there's so much going on in the sport, so many fights, but certain channels want to milk this story for all it's worth. And I'm only going to make one video about this, okay, and just give you my 2 cents on it and what I think of it. Now, my subscribers, people who have been subscribed to me for quite some time, know my view on drug testing. Okay, you know how I feel about PEDs in sport, and there's no point in me, going over old ground. There's no point in me telling you guys my opinion on it because, again, most of you guys already know. You could check out my old videos on drug testing in boxing and why I just don't engage in it whatsoever. But this video is going to be particularly about Dillian Whyte. Now, Dillian Whyte or at least for the past couple of years, he's been closing in on a potential world title fight with the WBC. Now, let me make one thing perfectly clear. I am not a fan of Dillian Whyte. I've never been a fan of the guy. I think the guy is an obnoxious prick, if I'm being honest. I don't like the way he talks. I don't like his attitude. I don't like his fighting style. I think the guy's a dirty fighter. I just think the guy's a bit of an asshole, if I'm being honest. Do I find him somewhat entertaining? Yes, I think some of his fights have been entertaining. The Chisora fights come to mind. Those were very entertaining fights. And would I like to see him fight for a title? Yes, damn well I would, because I mean he's gonna shake the establishment up a little bit if he gets a title shot. If he were to fight Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, he would go into those fights with a mindset that he is looking to take the fight to them. He wouldn't be overly respectful. He wouldn't be like passive aggressive like a lot of their opponents have been. No, he would be there with the intent to rip the title away from them. So I would like to see him fight for a title. It's his own fault that he hasn't, because he turned down an eliminator with Ortiz. He turned down the fight with Anthony Joshua for a optional defense. He turned down a eliminator with Pulev. He's turned down fights that would have gotten him in position for a title shot. So I'm not here to call Dillian Whyte a victim or defend Dillian Whyte. No, I've made my thoughts on him perfectly clear. He's a fighter who I don't really like him, but I respect him in some ways. But this situation, man, with the fucking failed drug test against Oscar Rivas. First of all, so UKAD. No, look, I've spoken out against UKAD in the past. UKAD are pathetic. They are pieces of shit. Like one of the things for me that highlights the problem with UKAD, and again, this is something that's going to trigger people. This is going to piss a lot of fanboys off. But this is the same company, UKAD, who covered up disgracefully and shamefully covered up when Tyson Fury and his cousin, by the way, Hughie Fury, both tested positive for anabolic steroids. Okay, they tested positive for nandrolone, which is a very powerful anabolic steroid. And Fury tested positive. I believe it was after the Christian Hammer fight in February. So that was the fight that he had before he fought Vladimir Klitschko, the fight that got him into the mandatory position. And yeah, that was a disgraceful situation. I mean, UKAD to this day uphold that they did fail drug tests, but because they deny that they knowingly ingested whatever gave them this elevated levels of nandrolone, the fight never got made a no contest, and it wasn't made public. The media didn't get wind of the story of the failed drug tests until many, many months later. I believe, in fact, about a year later, a year after the failed drug test happened, that was when it got made known to the public, and that was only when Tyson Fury came out and said some controversial things about Jews and whatnot, which pissed a lot of liberals off. And yeah, that was when all of a sudden the story broke and the media got wind of it. But before then, UKAD were very discreet and they actively covered up and hid the fact that Tyson Fury and his cousin had failed drug tests. So that goes to show you how disgusting and how corrupt UKAD is. And they've basically done the same thing here with Dillian Whyte. He's failed a drug test allegedly before the fight, and while the investigation is ongoing, they have allowed Dillian Whyte to go ahead with the fight. Now, how do I feel about that? Look, all I'm going to say is this, and I know that you guys are probably can sense what I'm going to say here, based on past experiences of listening to me talk about this subject, but this brings me to Deontay Wilder, doesn't it, man? Am I the only one out there? And I know I'm not. I know there are going to be people who agree and there are going to be lots of people who disagree. Am I the only one out there who thinks that it's a little bit too convenient, just a little tad bit too convenient, that whenever Deontay Wilder gets cornered into a position where he has to take a fight that means something, when he has to face an opponent who is dangerous or an opponent who has a potential of beating him, somebody who has the mindset and the confidence to go in there and take the fight to him. Somebody who's not a Gerald Washington or a fat fuck Chris Arreola. When he's got an opponent who is a legitimate, considerable threat, an actual contender, an actual challenger. Isn't it a bit convenient how there's always a failed drug test involved? Always, some way or another, a failed drug test will come out of the blue and will protect Deontay Wilder from having to take these challenges. Okay, and you guys know, if you follow Deontay Wilder's career, that I'm 100% honest about that, okay? You know that I'm telling the truth. Every single time this guy gets cornered into taking a tough fight, there's a failed drug test involved, okay? We know what happened with Alexander Povetkin on 2 occasions. When he was set to fight Deontay Wilder, then there was the whole meldonium situation, which he was cleared of because it was a residual trace amount of a recently banned substance. So Povetkin was cleared to fight. The fight could have gone ahead, but Deontay Wilder pussied out and ran home. And yeah, there was then the situation with Stavern where Povetkin again, he's fighting for the interim title just like Dillian Whyte was last week, which would have gotten him into a mandatory position to fight Deontay Wilder, where Deontay Wilder would have had to fight him. It'd have been back to square one. Then there's another failed drug test, but again, it's more controversy. Like they did an investigation. I believe they took that sample to another lab and it found that there was nothing in the sample, and there was some real fucked up like skullduggery involved, and Povetkin was cleared again. So yeah, there was that situation. There was also the situation with Andrei Varshik. He was set to fight Deontay Wilder. He was looking pretty good in training. He was game. He was saying all the right things. He was prepared. All of a sudden, he fails a drug test a matter of weeks before the fight, and again, he protested his innocence. You had Luis Ortiz, who of course there was a big demand for that fight at the time. A lot of people wanted Wilder to fight Luis Ortiz. He had a failed drug test, which aged him out a bit and managed to, get Deontay Wilder more time to prepare. And it's like, here we go again with Dillian Whyte. It's every time with Deontay Wilder, every time this guy is challenged and is cornered into a situation where he can't run from his responsibilities of taking a fight, there seems to be a failed drug test. So I totally sympathise with the people out there who are saying that Dillian Whyte was set up and that maybe there was some sort of bullshit involved with the WBC. I totally would not refute the idea. Am I saying or even suggesting that Dillian Whyte didn't take PEDs? No, I'm not. I mean, the guy has form. He has history of failed drug tests, and he was banned before. So, no, I'm not even suggesting that Dillian Whyte is not on PEDs. I'm just saying that in regards to Deontay Wilder, it seems a little bit too convenient to me. It really does seem too convenient. And yeah, Eddie Hearn. Look, Eddie Hearn is a piece of shit as far as I'm concerned. I don't like that Eddie Hearn, has been very vocal and, virtue signaling towards fighters outside of his promotional stable who fail drug tests. But yeah, when it's a fighter who he promotes that fails a drug test, all of a sudden, no, we need to gather all the facts and all the evidence before we criticise. And And it's pretty rich too, man. You know, you got people like Frank Warren coming out and virtue signaling and talking shit. This is the same Frank Warren who promotes Billy Joe Saunders, who just a few months back himself failed a drug test, did he not? And was, you know, still allowed to go ahead and fight for a title not that long later on a Frank Warren card. So Frank Warren is full of shit. You know, trying to virtue signal about drug testing in the sport. You know, he also promoted or co-promoted Tyson Fury for the situation with Christian Hammer. I believe that was even on a Tyson. It was on a Frank Warren card, was it not? So Frank Warren's full of shit, man. He really is. I mean, he shouldn't be coming out. He's only using this as an opportunity to drag Eddie Hearn's name through the mud. That's the only reason that Frank Warren is even talking about it. So I just think the whole situation's boring. I hate drug testing. I wish that, and then again, I knew I said that I wasn't going to talk about this, but I really wish they would get rid of drug testing altogether, because I cannot stand the virtue signaling. I cannot stand the victim mentality of some people. I can't stand this fake outrage from so many fans across the internet where when a fighter fails a drug test, you know, obviously depending on who that fighter is. I mean, if that fighter is Canelo Alvarez, who tested positive for steroids, or if that fighter is Lucas Brown, or if that fighter is Billy Joe Saunders, you know, fighters who people like, you know, who these, you know, certain sections of, you know, and certain contingents get behind. If it's one of those guys, oh, nobody gives a shit. You know, nobody gives a flying fuck when those guys test positive for PEDs. But if it's Alexander Povetkin, oh, God forbid he fails a drug test. It's Pedvetkin. He's putting people's lives at risk. He a cheating ass motherfucker. He a cheating ass bitch. And then they start talking about deaths in boxing and this, that, and the other. Even though deaths in boxing, and I know that there's been some people who died recently, you know, God rest their souls, had nothing to do with performance-enhancing drugs, okay? There's no case studies out there. There's no, you know, evidence that suggests that PEDs make the sport more dangerous, okay? That's absolute bullshit, okay? In a sport where you're getting punched in the head for a living, there's always going to be a possibility of brain damage and stuff like that. So can people please just stop with the fucking drug testing? Like, I really wish all these agencies like VADA, USADA, UKAD, they're all a bunch of hypocritical, biased pieces of shit who will protect certain fighters, okay? We know what's going on with Floyd Mayweather. The guy's a fucking walking pharmacy. The guy's been on PEDs most of his life, and yet he'll never be caught, because whenever he does test positive for something, they give him a therapeutic use exemption. You know, he gets TUEs for anything he tests positive for. So I really wish they would stop with drug testing. Just stop. Just let these guys fight, okay? I'm sick and tired of good fights like Dillian Whyte against Deontay Wilder. I'm sick and tired of fights like that being cancelled. I'm sick and tired of fights not happening because of this drug testing bullshit. Just stop. Stop with the drug testing. Okay, that's all I have to say. Just get rid of it altogether. Let me know what you guys think anyway. This has gone on way too long. I will not make another video about this. I promise. I'm sick and tired of drug testing. And yeah, fuck Dillian Whyte, fuck Eddie Hearn, fuck Deontay Wilder, fuck UKAD, fuck VADA, fuck the WBC, fuck Tyson Fury, fuck all these people. I don't care. Just let them fight. Alright, this is a sport. It's a combat sport, okay? In MMA, it's well known that they're all on PEDs and no one cares.